A lot of people think depression looks one way, and it actually looks very different, depending on who you're talking to. Depression does not mean just crying. It does not mean just staying in bed. Depression definitely can look like that, but it can also look like irritability. It can also look like loss of appetite, or trouble sleeping, or trouble connecting with other people. So, yeah, the one misconception is that it just looks one way.
Mental health is a very real thing, and I think most people know that, and so you don't have to stay in your house and suffer alone anymore. There are people out here who are willing to help. There are people out here who are willing to say, like, yeah, I deal with those same things. And so I think we're in a place now in society where you don't have to stay home and fight this by yourself anymore. You have the ability to get, professional help, whether that be with talk therapy or things like EMDR or with mental health medication management.
And I think depression looks a lot different for everybody. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what it looks like. Some of the major symptoms of depression are irritability, feeling fatigue, hopelessness, worthlessness, maybe eating more, eating less, sleeping, withdrawing from your activities or with your friends. But across the board, it looks different because we're all unique individuals, so it's going to look different for all of us.
So sadness, we want to think of sadness as a sort of reaction to something that's happened in our lives. So whether that be a loss or a disappointment, anything major that happens that would obviously lower our mood just a bit, sadness is a response. And of course, it is a general human response that we all have probably experienced at some point in our lives. What's the difference between sadness and depression is that depression is more of a state of being. So anything and everything could be going right in our lives, but it's almost this loss of pleasure or loss of positivity, even in the things that used to make us happy and used to engage us.
Depression, from my perspective, is more of a clinical diagnosis where you meet certain criteria in order to be diagnosed with that condition. And so for us, it's more of a chronic condition that impairs daily functioning much more than somebody who's experiencing sadness would. So impacting relationships, impacting work life, impacting all of these different facets of your life. Whereas sadness is an emotion that basically all of us experience at one point or another. It's more of a short-term emotion related to an event, whereas depression, you could have everything in your life going great and still experience depression.
Misunderstanding depression, I think that society doesn't fully embrace or understand what depression actually really is and what people struggle with. I think that, the more that we start making it normalized and having more services available to individuals, the more people are willing to look at the chemical imbalances that take place, genetic factors that take place that cause somebody to, struggle with depression.
It's not something that we can really will ourselves out of. Our first response is to, just stop, just be happy. But I would say to that person that, if somebody could just stop being depressed, best believe they would. It's not that simple.
The other piece about depression that I think often is misunderstood is that you can have the diagnosis your entire life, but it doesn't have to critically impact you forever. You can get treatment for that. You can get counseling, you can receive medication management, and people can legitimately get better and function as they would want in their day-to-day life.
The biggest reason why it'd be important to seek help is, of course, to get better. But ultimately, we want to seek help to be able to normalize this experience. The less people who talk about it, the more people feel alone. And we definitely want this to be something that everybody can engage in the conversation about, because it's a lot more prevalent than we think.
I think it's really important that people seek help because there's help available, and there is no shame in asking for help. And I think that the more that we embrace this concept of asking for help, the more tools and resources that people will have, and the better people are going to ultimately feel.
My best piece of advice would be to just talk to someone about it, and that seems pretty simple, but it's very difficult to do. And I would add, talk to someone about it, maybe without the expectation of a solution or some sort of action plan, because talking is kind of half the battle. Sometimes just getting it off your chest, getting it out, being able to make it make sense in words can be really, really helpful, even if the person you're talking to doesn't have all the answers.
Keeping up a routine and knowing what that routine is going to be, holding yourself accountable to exercise is really good, and especially in the winter months. Some people really like to use a sun lamp, checking in with your doctor and seeing if there's any medications that might help, and spending time with friends and family outside of what you typically do.
I would say if you're struggling with depression, one of the most important things is to try to stick with your routine. Part of that can be having a difficult time getting out of bed in the morning. Some people have a hard time getting up and showering every day. So, doing the best that you can possibly do to stick with your routine. Obviously, things like working out are beneficial for those who struggle with depression, although I do understand that sometimes it is hard to get up and do that. So for me, I would just say try to stick with your routine that works for you as much as possible.
Never think that there's no help out there for you, because there's ample amount of help just waiting for you to receive it.